I remember that night. Honestly, I don't think I can ever forget it. The wind was blowing so hard outside, and the clouds were thundering. Terrace door was open, and I could physically feel that cold wind rushing in. You know that sound, that deep sound of the storm right before the heavy rain starts? I was hearing that. I was sitting right next to my mom, holding her hand. She was just crying and saying that how could he do this? How could he bring himself to do this to us? And she was crying and saying this over and over again. How could he do this? How could he bring himself to do this to us? I did not even realize it. I had no idea that he was doing this for many months, and her tears just wouldn't stop falling. And I was sitting there trying to comfort her, telling her that, no, mama, he only ever gave you pain, right? So it's a good thing he's gone. I mean, I was really young back then, and I could not really understand the true depth of her pain. I honestly just wanted to fix it for her. I could see all that hurt inside her, and I just did not know what else to do to make her smile again. But the thing is, I had lost my father too that night, right? Yet there wasn't a single tear in my eye. Not one. Because in that moment, the only thing in front of me, the only thing that mattered was my mother's pain. And in that exact moment, when we had no idea what was going to happen to us or how we would survive, it felt like the absolute darkest night of our lives. We were just lost. But now looking back, we couldn't have even expected what was going to happen to us in the coming year. Because when Allah decides to stand by His servant, well, the whole world just watches. It just watches in awe. This is my mother's story. And my mother's story will teach you lessons that no book ever could or ever can. So my mom was born in a very poor family, and she was the eldest sister among a lot of siblings. And the way she describes her childhood, it really shows that her family wasn't very supportive. And she used to get beaten up a lot over smallest things, just tiny everyday things. The rich families, like their relatives, they used to put them down so much. Her whole family, honestly, they'd make them feel so small over the tiniest things, whether it was about their clothes or how they acted at dinners or sometimes at family parties. They just never let them forget they were how poor and they were at their mercy. And my mom felt all of this. She took it all to heart. So this is basically what her childhood was like. And the sad part is, she was highly intelligent, and she really was. But because of their hard circumstances, she just couldn't continue her studies. And at a very young age, because she had so many sisters, so many people around here, or rather her own family, thought a certain way. Back in those days, people had this mindset that having too many daughters is just a burden, and we need to get them married off quickly to be free of it. So my mom got married at the age of 16. And she was very young. They married her off to a man who wasn't financially stable and had a lot of anger issues, but nobody paid attention to that. Anyway, the marriage happened, and a year later, I was born. And with the background my mom came from, all the hurt and hardship she had already faced in her childhood, she had no idea that the biggest test of her life was just about to begin. And I'll just give you a visual of what it was like. I was 3 years old, or maybe 4, and I'm someone who can recall visuals very clearly from a very young age. So what I saw, my very first impression of my father and my mother's relationship as a child, where we were living, there was this opening outside, like a little opening area past the entrance door. And I remember I was standing there. My father came inside, and it was the daytime after work, and he was really, really angry. So now as a child, I could sense the tension, but I could not understand what they were talking about. So he came in and he angrily walked straight into the kitchen, and my mom just quietly followed right behind him. I did not really understand. Looking back at it now, I could sense that there was a heavy tension in the air. So I went into the kitchen after them and I saw that my mother had a pot on the stove. She was cooking some lentils. So my father looked at it and said that why did you make this in a pot? Why didn't you make this in the pressure cooker? And over a pot, just a pot, he grabbed the spoon from that pot and he started beating her with it. And while beating her, he grabbed her and dragged her from the kitchen into the room. And she was just constantly crying and saying sorry, that I made a mistake. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. And now I'm watching this whole scene as a 3-year-old. I saw my mother. She was standing right in the corner of the room. And my father was hitting her with that spoon. And it was stainless steel. She was only 17 at that time. And I mean, I could not really speak properly at that time, but I remember very vividly that I walked up to my dad and started pulling on his pants as a mean to say that, like, to stop him. There was only 3 of us in that room, but there was someone else, and it was Allah who was watching what he was doing to my mother. Anyone hearing this story would think about how totally unreasonable this was. Like, was this even a reason to hit a human being that much over a pot? That was my first impression of my father, who he is. And this happened, and after that moment, many times in front of people, humiliating her, hitting her so many times, hurting us so many times. And the weirdest part was, whenever other people came over, he would always act as if he is the best, kindest person in the world. At home, we constantly felt like if we made a mistake, we are going to get beaten. Or if he's sleeping or we make a sound, he might get angry. Or if we are just opening a door, we need to be extra careful. Or we shouldn't make any noise at all. We just stayed quiet when he was in the house. Or if the food is cooked and just one spice is a little too much or too little, what will happen? Like, just the scary things like that. The scene that I told you, it happened with all of us many times in our life. So in all of this, what did my mom do? My mom knew that her family back home wasn't supportive, and neither was she in a position in her life at that time where she could just go or get a job or support us financially. She had nothing, and she was scared to make that change. So my mom accepted it as her fate. And these things that I'm telling you right now, you really need to listen to them carefully. Because honestly, when you hear about the time that comes after all of this darkness, you'll realize something so beautiful. You'll realize that Allah keeps an account of absolutely everything you do, every tear, every silent moment of pain. He sees it and he rewards it. So my mom, even while going through hell, she used to teach us so much. She was our whole world. She would never sit down with us and say things like, your father is a terrible person, or he does that to me, or she always tried to protect his image in front of us. In fact, I remember even if we tried to say something behind his back, like what is he doing, or he's so wrong for doing this to you or to us, she would just gently stop us. She would sigh and tell us, all right, let it go, just let it go. And maybe looking back at it now, that was her way of moving forward from all of this trauma. She just wanted peace for us. She would always try to fix the environment in the house. After a horrible fight, she would wipe her tears, make us laugh. She would talk to us, tell us stories, just to relax us, make us feel safe again. Whatever he did to her, no matter how cruel, she would eventually go and try to pacify him herself. Just because she saw that her kids were getting so upset and scared over the shouting in the house. My mom always taught us to be really happy, even with little. We had almost nothing, but she always taught us to find happiness in the tiny little things in life. And the amazing thing is, we never felt envy. We never looked at what someone else had or felt jealous, because our mom taught us that it was like Every single piece of her beautiful heart transferred straight from her to us. She taught us how to be genuinely happy in other people's happiness. We were never jealous, it was just her pure upbringing. I honestly don't know how she did it while breaking inside, but she did. Even though we could see that our relatives were very wealthy and they would go shopping and they would come back, bring these massive full shopping bags, showing us off what they bought. And we would always just happily sit there and share in all those moments with them. We'd smile and look at their new things, but we never once said, why do they have all this and we should have it too? It just wasn't in our hearts because my mom did not let that bitterness grow inside us. It just wasn't in our hearts. And just like that, day by day, my mom kept going in this severely abusive relationship. Wherever we lived, in whatever neighborhood, the people around us always knew all about our household issues. They knew because my father would yell and make so much noise that everyone in the street could hear it. And I always felt so embarrassed as a kid whenever I went outside to play, or if a neighbor asked me about something, about the shouting or fighting, I would always just brush the topic off, or I'd just make an excuse or just deny it entirely. And my mom, she just kept enduring all of it silently. And as the time went on, it got to the point where she started trying to take on small jobs from home just to keep us afloat. Sometimes she tried to doing these little embroidery projects. Sometimes she tried doing that food service. My mom's family, they were pretty well off at that time. So sometimes they would get some clothes made for us, or they would just give us their old clothes. And we were very grateful for it. But throughout all this, whenever those people were doing these small favors for us, they would just make my mom feel really, really bad. But it was just a habit of my mom. She would stay quiet. She would just lower her eyes and take it. She wouldn't ever answer to those people back then. And looking back now, I saw that her silence and this suffering of ours, it would always escalate and get so much worse during the month of Ramadan. Because my father was an addict, and during Ramadan, while he was trying to fast and he couldn't get his fix, the withdrawals would kick in and he would become extremely physically abusive. He would violently fight and he'd break things around the house. Just absolute chaos. Sometimes he would self-harm. Well, actually, he rarely self-harmed. He mostly just took it all out on us. So one time, it was the holy month of Ramadan, and just like that. So one time, it was the month of Ramadan, and I was older at that time, about 12 or 13 years old, and my final exams were going on at school. And there were a lot of heavy, terrifying fights happening in the house that week. I remember coming home from school one afternoon. My father opened the door and he just looked at me and casually told me, "Your mother set herself on fire." I just froze. I walked inside and I saw my mom. She was sitting inside the room. I did not even understand what I was supposed to do in that moment. I felt such an intense burning hatred for my father right then. In that moment, a dark hatred I have never felt before in my life, but ever since. The thought would violently cross my mind like, what can I do so my mom never has to endure this pain again? Because for me, my whole world was my mom. She was everything and she still is. I looked around and I saw that just outside the kitchen, her burnt shirt was lying there on the ground, and there were pieces of burnt black cloth scattered everywhere. I did not say a word. I just bent down, started picking them up, and while I was cleaning that up, scraping those burnt pieces off the floor, I did not have a single tear in my eyes. Not one. Just intense, cold hatred. Because this man had pushed my beautiful mother to the point where she actually tried to take her own life just to escape him. But you'd think that, man, if someone takes such a huge, desperate step like that, surely the other person would be affected by it, right? Surely they would wake up and feel some remorse. But not him. He wasn't going to be affected at all by this. He was just getting even more angry that she did this. I felt like we were completely trapped in one dark place with no doors. We wouldn't tell anyone outside. We wouldn't dare to mention it to anyone. We just kept it all inside. We talked about everything among ourselves, my mom and I, my sister and my brother. We just shared everything with each other. And all that suffering of ours, it was completely hidden from the eyes of the world. But I know now there was a Lord watching from above, and he was keeping a meticulous record, which in the coming times he was going to settle entirely one by one. But as a kid, everything I was witnessing, this massive fire was building up inside me. Such an intense, raging fire was building up that I honestly feel like it had to burst out of me back then. It would have burned everything down to the ground. And every single person who was hurting my mom during that time, or causing her pain, or whose harsh word made her sad, I was quietly registering all of it in my head. I did not forget a single face. There are so many things about their relationship that I honestly don't even want to mention. It's too dark. And now, in the middle of all this, when a woman is going through so much stress and a trauma on a daily basis like that, sometimes mothers start taking their anger and frustration out on their kids. It just happens because they're so overwhelmed. But my mom, she was exact opposite of that. I would come home from school every day, tell her everything that happened. I would just talk non-stop. She would just sit and listen. She never told me that why you are talking so much or you shouldn't do that. I'm tired of listening to you. Never. Honestly, she gave me so much unconditional love. That love of hers, because of that I survived. Because I know for a fact, if I hadn't gotten that love from her, if she had pushed me away even a little bit, I would have completely broken down. I wouldn't be who I am today. And she used to talk to me for hours, and I'd talk to her. We'd share everything. We comforted each other, and we constantly reassured each other. We were each other's only support in that house. But as I was growing up and watching all of this happen, I just could not accept it. I could not accept the life we were living in. And my mom used to sigh and tell me sometimes a person gets used to all these kind of situations when so much time passes. You just get used to it. But I would look at her and tell her, no, you never get used to it. You don't get used to bad things happening to you, and I won't let you get used to it. I have such deep, incredibly strong attachment to my mom that whenever she was ill, I would just sit beside her because I honestly couldn't bear to see her in pain. I remember this one time so clearly. She was really, really sick and I was going with her to the hospital. We were taking a bus and the roads in that area were almost completely broken. So she had this high fever, her body was aching, and because of that bumpy road, the bus just kept jolting constantly and every few seconds a huge bump. When I looked at her face, I saw a visible sign of pain on her face. And on top of everything else, it just broke my heart. It hurt me so much that I made a promise right there. I just wished in my heart, oh Allah, please give me enough so one day I can make my mom sit in a nice car so she never ever has to feel this kind of pain again. And I had absolutely no idea that in that very moment, that silent, desperate dua I made in my heart as a young girl, I had no idea how dear it was to my Rabb, how beautifully my Allah was actually going to fulfill it later on. Back then I used to think that all these terrible problems in our house, they were just because of money. I thought if I could just earn a lot of money, all these problems would magically end. Like all these fights and the screaming and the abuse, it would all just stop if we were not poor. And so I threw myself completely into this pursuit. From the age of 14 or 15, because I was just a student, I could not go out or work full time. I would try to find some work online on the side. I tried out different things all the time. I just constantly doing something, looking for a way out for us. So I tried to do so many things at that time. I kept doing them for a long time. It constantly felt like there was a massive block in my way. Whenever I felt like I was finally getting closer to my goal, I would always end up getting pushed 10 steps back. Nothing ever worked out. Years just passed by like this. I still could not earn anything substantial. And while I was failing at this, living through all these terrible circumstances, because of my mom's extreme prolonged trauma, her condition really started to to get worse. She became very, very quiet, and the light in her just started fading. She started completely isolating herself from the world around her. And the worst part is, my father used her condition to his own advantage. He would go out in front of people, in front of relatives and neighbors, and play the victim, just so people would feel sorry for him and give him favors. And living like this, enduring all of this suffocating darkness, 22 years passed by for us. 22 years. And then it got worse. When we couldn't even afford to live in a rented house of our own anymore, we had to pack up and move into one of our relatives' house. And when we moved there to live, that's when everything really started to change. In that house, we went through such humiliation, difficult situation that there even came a day when we had absolutely nothing to eat at home. Another relative who lived nearby brought over a single plate of rice. And when they brought that plate in, I took it, quietly placed right in front of my mom and my sister. I just turned around, walked away from there. I left the room so they could eat their fill, so they wouldn't have to share it with me. I'm not telling you this so you sit there and think about how huge or heroic sacrifice I made. That's not the point. Rather, I'm telling you this so you can see that the act I did in that quiet moment, neither my mom nor my sister even knew about it till to this day. And I'm telling you all today. But the real point is, Allah saw it. Nobody else knew, but Allah saw it. And when Allah sees something pure like that, you will see how He rewards it. Then slowly, finally, things started to shift. I started my own YouTube channel. My work slowly started picking up momentum. Gradually, my work got so much better and money actually started to come in. For the first time in my life, I had an income and I immediately started covering the household expenses. And I took that burden off. But of course, my father couldn't handle that. He wanted to control absolute everything. He wanted me to just hand all my hard-earned income straight to him. But I stood my ground. I would always tell him, you should rest now. You've worked so many years. I'll handle everything. And in his eyes, he wasn't seeing a daughter who is helpful. He was seeing his absolute authority slipping away. He was realizing that if I took over the expenses, he had nothing over us. He had been controlling us through the fear and he was completely losing that control. He used to do all those horrible things to us simply because he felt he could, because he was the one feeding us. He probably thought to himself, now they're going to be financially independent. Now they don't need my money or my support. So why would they put up with everything I do anymore? And so his reaction to losing control was to go out and secretly betray my mom in the worst possible way. He kept seeing us, he kept living in the house, but he also started another relationship on the side. He kept coming around for months, acting like everything was normal. But honestly, somewhere deep down, everyone had started to feel like there was a strange shift. We felt like there was another relationship involved, and then one day, he just confessed it himself. And that brings us right back to that stormy night I told you about at the very beginning. That night, my mom was sobbing uncontrollably in front of me, just broken, and I just couldn't bear to see her in that much agonizing pain after 22 years of loyalty. I was sitting there trying to comfort her, but not a single tear fell from my eyes. I was just rubbing her arm, telling her, Mom, it's a good thing he's gone. It really is a good thing. I kept telling her, Mom, it's a good thing he left, right? He only ever gave so much pain to you. It's honestly a good thing he's gone finally. But she couldn't hear me. She just kept sobbing, repeating over and over again, such a huge betrayal, such a huge betrayal. And she just cried and cried until eventually she just fell asleep right there from the sheer exhaustion. After that moment, I went upstairs, took out my prayer mat, held my knees to my chest, and cried like a 5-year-old. And I kept saying, You never loved us? You never loved us? Not for a single moment? We were nothing to you, right? And you showed us that we were nothing to you. That 22 years of pain and hardship we suffered with you, it was nothing to you. You left when it was convenient for you. Whenever I got any money from my work, I would spend absolutely all of it on my mother, on my siblings. Finally, when the truth was completely out about my father, I just stopped talking to him entirely. I was like, you betrayed my mom, you betrayed us after everything we endured. Even after all of that, my mom, she still couldn't really take a firm stand. He would just come around to see her sometimes. She would still quietly meet him. But me, I never said a word to him again. And when he saw that I wasn't even talking to him, he thought to himself, well, what can I hold over them now? How can I show my authority? So, you know what he did? He told us to return everything in the house. We only had about 2 3 mattresses, and along with that, a very old broken fridge with few appliances and some old dishes. That was our entire life worth of belongings. And at that time I was filled with so much intense anger that I literally called a truck, had all of those things loaded, and just send them right back to him. And at that time I was earning enough money from my channel that at that point in a single day, I just went out, bought all of the necessary things for the house. When the rest of the relatives found out about this, that he actually took his old stuff back from his own family because they always thought he was the sweetest person ever. They were shocked. Like he did this to his own daughters. He even took the basic household stuff away from them. Everyone was really calling him out for it, finally realizing who he truly was. Honestly, it did not make any difference to me what they thought. I was just so genuinely happy about the fact that I was finally able to provide all of that for my mom. And exactly, I mean exactly, 7 years after that day when my mom was sick and I was taking her on that horrible bumpy bus ride, I was able to get her a big, beautiful car that she liked. And by the grace of Allah, she sat there safe and comfortable. And now my next dream is to buy my mom a house, a roof where she can live peacefully, a place that is entirely, completely her own. And I know in my heart that just as Allah so beautifully and miraculously granted me that car all of a sudden, He will grant me a house all of a sudden too. I have total faith in that.